Yesterday, when the media was giving Trump credit for changing his tone and seeming more serious, more recognizing of the threat faced by coronavirus, the damage that's going to be done, it was frustrating to me because I know what he's said before and what he's done so far. And what do you know? It didn't take even a day. In that same press conference, he started to try to rewrite what he's said before. So we're going to play two videos, and then we're going to correct the record with a bit of fact checking. So here's the first.
Been doing this for a long time. The question is, what would have happened if we did nothing? Because there was a group that said, let's just write it out. Let's write it out. What would have happened? And that number comes in at 1.5 to 1.6 million people, up to 2.2 and even beyond. So that's 2.2 million people would have died if we did nothing. We just carried on our life. Now, I don't think that would have been possible because you would have had people dying all over the place. This would not have been a normal life. How many?
So there he says, you know, what if we had done nothing? What if we had just tried to ride this out? What if we had pretended like everything was going to be okay? So here's the thing. I can think of a few people who tried to imply that we could just ride this out. Do you remember like 3.5 days ago when he was saying by Easter, we're going to be cool? You know, when he was on Fox News with Sean Hannity and he was saying, you know, a lot of people, like their symptoms aren't going to be bad and they're going to go to work and it's going to be okay. And then suddenly they're just going to get better. So we have another video that's going to be worse, but from the beginning, the idea that other people were saying, don't do anything, just ride this out, JR. What do you think about him taking that tone now?
Well, because others said that, so he's of course detaching himself from himself, who said these things. And honestly, you know what? I just read something this morning. Devin Nunes is upset that California, of course, he's representative of California, that California schools are pretty much considering to cancel the rest of the school year and then do whatever they're doing remotely. And he said, you know, it's way overblown, all this stuff. We should be back in 2 to 4 weeks. They're still pushing this line. So, hey, detach yourselves from people like him, one of your best friends and biggest supporters, through all of the craziness that you put the country through. Detach yourselves from them as well. It's rewriting history. This is the most important part of this pandemic to him, is making sure that he comes out scot-free and clean from it, rather than having any kind of responsibility to it or connection to it, or effect on it spreading even further.
Yeah,
that's the idea.
But here he gets more specific. He wants you to be angry at the people who tried to pretend for literally weeks that this was just the flu.
A relatively short period of time. But think of what would have happened if we didn't do anything. I mean, I've had many friends, business people, people with great actually common sense. They said, why don't we write it out? A lot of people have said, a lot of people have thought about it. Write it out. Don't do anything. Just write it out and think of it as the flu. But it's not the flu. It's vicious. When you send a friend to the hospital and you call up to find out how is he doing, it happened to me, where he goes to the hospital, he says goodbye, he's sort of a tough guy, a little older, a little heavier than he'd like to be, frankly. And you call up the next day, how's he doing? And he's in a coma? This is not the flu.
Okay, so JR, there he says, you know, people are like, this is just the flu. It's not the flu. It's vicious. He tells a story about his friend who's a little bit older, a tough guy who's a little bit heavier than he wants to be, who suddenly is in a coma. I'm fairly certain he is making that up and he's talking about himself and his fears about himself getting coronavirus, because that sounds made up. We can't say for sure, but you never know with him because he's a massive liar. But there he said people were trying to act like this was just the flu, and that's irresponsible because this is not just the flu.
Oh, well, again, so we have to make sure that, I don't know if he knows if he's having this argument with himself, and also the fact that things that he said and tweeted in the past are still there. They exist. Again, what's the end game? I'm still not sure how he expects this to go over well. Mm-hmm. No one believes it. His supporters don't believe it. Because the reason why I know his supporters don't believe it is because his supporters believed him when he said the opposite.
Yeah.
And did the opposite. And how we need to be back and the economy needs to come back. And what was it? You said it was even last week? We can't let the remedy be worse than the flu itself, or whatever.
We can't let the cure be worse than the disease.
What does that mean?
It means go back to normal. That's what it means.
It's like last week, but it doesn't matter. He just says it and walks away. And then if a reporter asks him, says, so you said this last week, 2 weeks ago, last month, 2 months ago. And you know what he says to them instead? You're a nasty reporter. That's a nasty question.
Yeah.
Oh, this is a doozy. Hey, why don't you guys ask questions that actually help people? All these things, instead of answering a question, point out his the history he's got behind it. Again,
Yeah.
that's the theme here. Every time he's gotten upset at a reporter in these briefings, it's because they asked him about his previous response. That is the key. That's the thing that hooks him, because that's what he doesn't want to have happening. It's him being connected to what he did.
Harum says, worse than a pathological liar, disingenuous. Yeah. And so, you know what? I would like to be, very briefly, if you'll bear with me, I would like to be a bad reporter. I would like to be nasty and threatening and not nice. Because when he says other people were pretending that it was just the flu, I thought, well, that's weird, because I'm pretty sure over the last month I've read many articles with him saying that it was just the flu. In fact, we've talked about it before on the show, so I did a little bit of digging online. And here's a few things. March 9th. So last year, 37,000 Americans died from the common flu. It averages between 27 and 70K per year. Nothing is shut down. Life and the economy go on. At this moment, there are 546 confirmed cases of coronavirus with 22 deaths. Think about that. So he's saying there's like none, and we don't shut it down even if it was way worse. So he is definitely saying just ride it out, don't do anything. And he is comparing it to the common flu. But hold for just a sec, because it gets worse. Okay, just a week ago, Trump told Fox News in an interview that despite deaths of about 36,000 people a year on average from flu, quote, we've never closed down the country for the flu. So you say to yourself, what is this all about? So 1 week ago on Fox News, he's saying, we don't close things down. But it's even worse, because we had a press conference. This is back, I believe, on February 26th. And there's a few quotes there that are just amazing. He said, at that point, we've had some pretty bad flus, and we've had some pretty bad viruses, and we've never closed the country before. We have to go back to work. So again, we've had disease before. We've had flus before. What, are we going to shut things down? He said this at that same one, February 26th. When I mentioned the flu, I said, actually, I asked the various doctors, I said, is this just like flu? Because people die from the flu. And this is very unusual, and it is a little bit different, but in some ways it's easier, and in some ways it's a little bit tougher. Yeah. And then when he says people say it's just like the flu, at that February 26th press conference, I found a quote that seems to indicate a little bit of hypocrisy when he said, this is a flu, this is like a flu.
I'm trying to figure out how you read so deep into that to get that he said this is a flu, John. Come on.
This is a flu, this is like a flu. Who are these people saying it's like a flu? This is a flu, this is like a flu. Those people were irresponsible. People will die because they didn't take it serious. This is a flu. This is like a flu.
Blood on their hands.
Now it doesn't matter, like in terms of the reporters. They can't, like if Yamiche takes this quote and reads it to him, it's not gonna get him because he can't get him. His fans don't care. And you know, as I was getting some of these quotes, some were tweets. And so when you go back to a tweet from 3 weeks ago, the responses generally are from that day. And so some of his tweets where he was saying the media is like freaking out, they're trying to create a panic, they're pretending this is going to be really bad. There were responses with thousands of retweets of, you know, Trump super repliers who were like, yeah, the media is just trying to crash the economy. This isn't a big deal. And like I looked at those names and I thought, do any of those people now think, wow, I was really misled? The media was right. This is really bad. There aren't 500 cases anymore. There are 200,000 cases right now and getting worse.
Yeah, once Trump takes his, quote, serious tone that everyone's giving him credit for now, do they think, oh, the serious tone, now it's a big deal. Now it's for real. But, you know, a month ago it wasn't for real. 2 weeks ago it wasn't for real. Last week it wasn't for real. Because that's how recently he's been pushing this narrative. I don't know. It would be a great question to ask, because there's probably been countless mental collisions of reality from his supporters have had every time they believed something he said and then saw the reality way later and had to deal with the fact that they were told the opposite and believed it. And it's tough, I guess, man. That's your hero. So, you know, you go for it, but then eventually you have to realize your hero is not working for you.
A massive liar.
Yeah.
And I just want to add one more thing. This is a flu. This is like a flu. It's literally what he was attacking. It couldn't be more direct.
Can I give you an example of a real denial that turned into a real apology and real acknowledgement? So
Yeah.
Evangeline Lilly, who was on, who's
Yes.
like Ant-Man, what's it, Wasp, the Wasp, right?
Yeah, Ant-Man and the Wasp.
And
Yeah.
she was in Lost, if you want to go way back. So she came out originally,
The
and
Hobbit.
she was dropping. Yeah, oh yeah, The Hobbit. I didn't see it. Heard that was gonna be good. She came out originally talking about how frustrated she is at the panic and the anxiety and the pushing things aside. And she dropped her kids off at gymnastics and posted, they washed their hands, they're fine, moving on with life, right? And then she got some pushback, and then reality continued to set in, and she saw what was really going on. So
Yeah.
her motivations were based on whatever. She came forward with an apology. And this is how you apologize. She goes, weeks ago, first of all, I apologize for people that I dismissed, the people that are most affected, and all this for my flippant approach, right? I'm paraphrasing. She may not necessarily use those words. And then went on to say, I was masking my own fears and concerns about it by trying to go on with a normal everyday life and not acknowledging it.
Yeah.
That's a real apology that actually talks about the people you hurt, talks about the reasons why you did the stuff that you did, and then acknowledges that you've switched it and the reasons why you have. That's how you acknowledge that you were wrong before, and now you've come to this point because you actually care, rather than someone who doesn't care and all they're looking for is to protect their ego and their image. That's the difference. She's a celebrity. She's a known figure. She's someone who probably benefits from people knowing who she is and having a positive outlook about her. But sometimes it helps to just point out that you were wrong. You were the stupid one. You were the one that was causing the problem, and move on. And people might actually like you for it.
Yeah. Yeah, like imagine if Sean Hannity did that. Imagine if he was like, you know what, I've got a lot of reasons to distrust the media and the way that they attack Trump, but I allowed that bias to lead me to believe that they were wrong on something that they were 100% not wrong on. And to the extent that I misled people about this, I apologize. You should take it totally seriously. Listen to the doctors. Like, he would be twisting our arm to give him credit, but he's not going to do it.
All you gotta do is change your tone and you'll get enough acceptance from it.
Yeah, the thing is, like in political commentary, no one's ever wrong. Why would they ever admit that they're wrong? Their fans will hate that they will admit that they're wrong. They'll defend them if they just continue being wrong. Mm-hmm. It's one of the most frustrating things about this. For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/thedamagereport. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.